As a small business owner, you've probably heard of tax write-offs, and you've probably thought to yourself, what is a tax write-off? Because true story, when do we ever learn about stuff like taxes? Well, today I'm teaching you all about what tax write-offs are and why they matter. I've been teaching small business owners about business finance for over 10 years. So if the idea of learning about taxes scares you, don't worry. Taxes act way cooler than they actually are. Once I teach you a few tax basics, you'll see that you can totally handle the tax side of your business. How do write-offs work? Write-offs, also known as tax deductions, are an absolute dreamboat on your taxes because they lower your tax liability, which means that they lower how much your final tax bill will be and how much you'll owe the government. The reason these necessary and ordinary expenses are called write-offs or tax deductions is because on your taxes, you deduct them from your total revenue, and that gives you your taxable profits. It looks like this: total revenue, which is just a fancy way of saying all your income, minus your tax deductions equals your taxable profits, which is essentially your personal income. So the more tax deductions you have, the less you're going to pay in taxes. What is a tax write-off? Now that you know why you should love and adore tax write-offs, let's talk about what a tax write-off is. A tax write-off is also known as a tax deduction. The IRS defines a tax deduction as an ordinary and necessary expense for your business, which sounds a little ambiguous, so let's break that down. Ordinary means that it's an expense that's pretty typical for businesses. Some examples are advertising expenses, travel, meals, and supplies. Most businesses will have these types of expenses, which is why they're called ordinary. Necessary is a little bit trickier. It's an expense that is necessary for you to operate your business. Now, different industries have different needs. So while ordinary expenses are pretty much the same across all businesses, necessary expenses will vary. A photographer's necessary expenses will be photography supplies. A painter's necessary expenses will be paintbrushes. A hairstylist's necessary expenses will be shampoo and hairbrushes. I think you get the gist. Basically, it depends on the type of business you have, how your expense relates to what you do. There are also tax write-offs I call split deductions. Split deductions are expenses that are both personal expenses, as in not tax deductible, and business expenses. With split deductions, you can only write off the business portion of the expense. The personal portion is not deductible. Examples of split deductions are home office expenses, a percentage of your cell phone bill, and a percentage of your home internet. I'm not going to go into detail about split deductions, but there is a blog post linked below called 3 Types of Tax Deductions and How to Track Them. That post goes more in detail about split deductions. So aren't all business expenses tax write-offs? No. Just because it's an expense for your business does not mean the IRS will classify it as a tax write-off. For example, under the new tax law, client entertainment is no longer deductible. So if you take your client out to My Little Ponies on Ice, you can still consider it a business expense internally, but you cannot claim it as a tax deduction. Most business expenses will be tax deductions, but it's important to know that not every single expense will fall under the necessary and ordinary umbrella. How do I know if I can write it off? So we've talked a lot about necessary and ordinary expenses, but it can still feel really confusing when you're trying to figure out if something is really a business expense. Because real talk, as self-employed people, so much of our personal lives are intertwined with our business. And of course, we don't want to be lying on our taxes about our deductions or writing things off that really aren't business expenses. So how do you make sure that you're writing off the right expenses? Well, first, if it's a legit business expense, do not fear the tax deduction. I've talked to so many business owners who aren't writing off legitimate business expenses because they're afraid of the IRS. Seriously, if it's necessary or ordinary for your business, then take the deduction. But if you're unsure if an expense is actually necessary or ordinary, here are some questions you can ask yourself. 1, does it have anything to do with my business? Now, obviously the answer should be yes. If it's not yes, then you have no business trying to make it a tax write-off. 2, what does this have to do with my business? And think this through. How does this expense relate to your daily operations, performing your services, or selling your products? 3, is it an expense that the IRS has deemed non-deductible? There's a blog post linked below called 5 write-off mistakes that can get you in trouble that talks about business expenses that people try to write off but really can't. 4, can I justify it to an IRS auditor? When you get audited, you have the chance to explain suspicious expenses to your auditor. If you were talking to an auditor, do you think you could make a compelling case for why this expense is related to your business? And when I say compelling, I'm not talking about a bunch of mental gymnastics to justify something. I'm talking about a really clear, straightforward answer for writing it off. If not, you probably shouldn't write it off. If you are still unclear about an expense, keep track of it, but also make a note to talk to a tax professional about the expense. Also, in the description, I've linked to a bunch of blog posts about tax write-offs. These posts will give you an idea of the types of deductions you could be taking as a small business owner. And I have something super special for you, which is my Biz Finance Survival Kit. It's free and not only comes with a tax write-off cheat sheet, but also with 4 other cheat sheets and checklists for your small business. You can download the free survival kit using the link in the description below. If you like this video, let me know in the comments below what was your biggest takeaway. And make sure you subscribe to my channel because every week I share a new video about how to organize and stay on top of your business finances. I'll see you in the next video.